One topic Ajahn was teaching about last week was something that's particularly important to be able to understand. The title of the subject would be something like, Do we learn by mistakes? So before I get to that question, I wanted to introduce this topic or this teaching by talking about patience. And when I say patience here, I'm not really talking so much about, just tolerance of disagreeable situations, although obviously that's an important quality to develop, but more specifically, not becoming too impatient to have immediate results right away or to want Dhamma practice to be something like taking a pill. Rather, you have to be prepared to continue putting a lot of effort for as long as it takes. But the thing that's easy to misunderstand here about patience is to confuse patience, which is necessary and important, with basically continuing to do the same thing again and again that doesn't work and hoping that at some point it will just magically start to work if you are patient enough. So, patiently continuing to do the same thing that is not working and thinking that, oh yeah, I'm patient, I will just wait, and at some point I will have results, but you have no idea how or when, or and no, it's not working now, but at some point it will start to work. So that's not the right kind of patience. Really, it's more like, mental laziness disguised as patience, or not wanting to actually look at what's wrong with your practice disguised as, oh, I'm just being patient. So to give an analogy, if somebody has, let's say, a machine that doesn't work, for example, a car engine, so it's true that he should not become frustrated and impatient with it if he just tries one thing and that doesn't work. If he tries to fix it by one method or he tries one button and that doesn't work, to make it start again, then he shouldn't just get frustrated with it and shout at the car and walk away. But neither would it be the right sort of patience to just patiently keep trying the same button again and again that's not ever working. But the right kind of patience is to continue patiently searching for the problem, to continue to analyze why it doesn't work, and to continue being willing to change the approach to correct what you're doing and to start again, even. So, Dhamma practice is like this, it involves patience, but also, importantly, cleverness. So, if, for example, you see, okay, I'm practicing or I think I'm working very hard, but I'm not getting results, then yes, you should not just become frustrated and irritated and think, oh, maybe I'll just give up. But it's also not wrong. In fact, it is the right thing to do to think, okay, I'm not getting results. I've been practicing for a long time. I'm putting effort. So what am I doing wrong? And in fact, this is something that we should be almost doing continually, trying to search and analyze like the machine. If you figure out what's wrong with the machine, then 90% of the job is done and you just have to solve it. But the whole work of Dhamma is, at least a big part in the beginning, getting rid of our wrong views, getting rid of our misunderstandings. It's searching for what we're actually doing wrong, searching for what we're understanding wrongly. And when we find what the problem is, then that's really a lot of the job is done. So the whole work is in finding out where our problems are. And in this, it's really important not to ignore when we have a problem, not to just think it will go away by itself. So, what I mean by that is that it's quite common for people to end up in a sort of situation in the practice of Dhamma, because it is difficult and it goes against all our habits, that even though supposedly we think we know that, let's say, X action is wrong, or it brings me in a bad direction, or sensuality is bad, or whatever thing we have supposedly understood to be not good, yet we keep on doing it again and again. And then it's important to really ask ourselves, not ignore this, but ask ourselves, do I actually know what the problem with this thing is? Because if I know that it's a problem and I know what the problem is, then why do I keep on doing it again and again? And, we can compare it to something really obvious. If you're remotely a serious practitioner of Dhamma, then you should probably be keeping at least the 5 precepts. If you're not keeping the 5 precepts, then this is probably not really the right video for you. But if you're a remotely serious practitioner of Dhamma, you should be keeping the 5 precepts and understanding why you're keeping them and not have any intention to break them. So if you have, for example, the opportunity to kill an insect, if like a mosquito lands on you, even if a mosquito lands on you, you have the opportunity to kill it. Would you kill it? Would you deliberately kill that mosquito, even if you have the possibility of doing it? And normally the answer should be no, because for this, at this point, it should be very clear that this is wrong and you don't want to do it under any circumstances. There's no reason why you would do it. And so then we can ask ourselves, like, what is the difference? Why don't we have this clarity when we keep on doing the thing that we supposedly know to be wrong? If we really understood why it was wrong, could we keep on doing it? As if we understood why it was wrong as clearly as we understand why it is wrong to kill an insect, then we can't do an action that we understand to be totally wrong and to bring us absolutely nothing. Another analogy is that it's something like losing weight. If somebody is overweight and they want to lose weight, there's really no other way around this than doing some kind of diet and reducing the amount of food that they eat, or starting to exercise a lot more. But normally it's by reducing food. So when you start to diet, there will be times when anybody who's on a diet will feel hungry. And, hunger means I need to eat more. And the person might even think, oh, I can just eat one more hamburger, then I will have the strength to continue my diet. But obviously, if they eat one more hamburger, then they're not on their diet and they won't lose weight. And if they continue to eat one more hamburger, then they might complain that, oh, I know I'm overweight, I know it's a problem, and I know I'm unhealthy, but I'm not able to lose weight. But why is that? Because I get hungry whenever I try to go on a diet, and then I need to eat. So as long as a person has the attitude that if I'm hungry, I have to eat, or if I'm hungry, I'm allowed to eat, then no matter how much they realize that they're overweight and that it's a problem, they're never going to lose weight. And patience definitely won't help. So this person has to be able to find what's wrong and correct it. And notice that here, if a person says, oh, it's a problem that I'm overweight, it's not really quite true. The problem is not that they're overweight. The problem is that they keep eating too much. And that's an important distinction to make, because it can be very easy in Dhamma, as in everything, to confuse the symptoms of a problem with the problem itself. So if somebody just thinks that being overweight is the problem, then they might think that they can solve it by going to get a surgery or something, doing a liposuction. But that is not obviously solving the problem, because if they don't correct the fact that they're eating too much, then they will just gain back all the weight right away and it won't change anything. So similarly, in terms of Dhamma, if we experience unwholesome states or different forms of suffering like agitation, anxiety, anger, or sadness, we should realize that these are not the problem in themselves, but the symptoms of the problem of, basically it comes down to craving and wrong thinking, wrong understanding. So I could maybe go into that subject in a little bit more detail at some point in future, but now I just wanted to make the point that in order to correct the problem, you have to correctly see where the problem is. And now I just wanted to finish by coming back to the title of this subject, which is the question, do we learn by mistakes? And it's so common to hear people say this all the time. Ah, yes, we learn from our mistakes. But do we actually learn from our mistakes? If you think about it, especially in relation to everything that I've just been explaining right now, which is not from me, but it's a report of what Ajahn said. I should make that clear as well. Anyway, if you think about it, the question, do we learn from our mistakes, is kind of wrongly answered almost everywhere. When people say, we learn from our mistakes, what do they really mean? Like, do they really mean that we learn from our mistakes? Because isn't it possible, just as we've been looking at to go on making the same mistake again and again and again and never even realizing that it's a mistake. So, do you learn from this kind of mistake? So, if you think about it, when do we learn from our mistakes? It's really only when we correct our mistakes. Then we learn something. So, we don't learn from mistakes, we learn from correction of mistakes. And it might sound like a kind of trivial difference or like I'm just being too particular, but it is important to see the difference between these two things. The really important aspect of when we say we learn by trial and error, it's not that we make trials, because we can make trials all our life and never get anywhere, or we can make mistakes, make errors all our life and never get anywhere. But what is important and why we can learn through trial and error, why it's possible, is the ability to see why an error is an error, and therefore being able to correct it. And this is really important because it's also a summary, one of the ways in which the right view in Dhamma is summarized. Knowing wrong as wrong and right as right.